welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, hypocrisy, hatred for Jeffrey Epstein, one rich major sexual predator, Anglo male, right? As you see on the image on the screen. But the minimization-ness of Mike Jeffries, another major rich sexual predator Anglo male that you see on the screen, right? Now look at those two. Both of them were rich Anglo males, a well-to-do background, basically good schooling, different kind of things. Unfortunately, on one side of the hypocrisy was Epstein, who is that boogeyman relating to, oh my goodness, what he did to young girls and women. But at the same time, when you talk about Mike Jeffries, that sexual predator demon, two different dichotomy type situations, opposites. No gigantic outrage of any comparison, even though Mike Jeffries, who is the Abercrombie & Fitch CEO, knowingly with two other different type of, maybe some other people as well, demons, that the main person, Mike Jeffries, that he was caught with however sexual predatory perversion with however young males, primarily white males, by the way. And there was no, oh my goodness, we must protect the males. Nope. Right? I'm like, the hypocrisy. And so the thing about it is, I'm like this. I'm in observation mode, looking at how Epstein is. But I'm like, what about Mike Jeffrey? This guy was the CEO of a major brand, Abercrombie & Fitch. Right? And doing whichever heinous demonically things with these young males. But at the same time, I guess, male lives, it really doesn't quite matter. Now, again, let's get some straight. Now, it was more about white on white criminality, unfortunately, on this situation with Mike Jeffrey. Those are primarily white males. Situation with Jeffrey Epstein, that was primarily going to probably be dealing with young and not so young white females. So it's still white on white criminality. At the same time, there still is the hypocrisy, regardless, on the coverage and the animosity, hatred to those two. It's not even on the same platform. One is for, hey, we got to protect girls. We got to protect the women. Oh my goodness, Jeffrey Epstein, demon. But Abercrombie Fitch CEO, right, with his other two core demons, participating sexual perversion, grooming young males. Then it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of wrong. What? I'm like this. Right? And then at the same time, the other little minimizing thing is you say, wait a minute, what about Jeffrey Epstein? Let's say this again, Epstein. We're just going to pretend, right? With that last name. Because if it was some situation of somewhere else, whoever personnel, and they were doing this to what we call wink, wink, some kind of Jawishism girls or women. Oh my goodness. Not only are you supposed to protect women and girls, you must protect some Jawish girls and women. You see how that goes, right? You see how that goes. So let's go ahead and share my screen to go ahead and get into this. The first thing I want to show is, let's just look at a video on this. I'm just kind of setting the directions up with this to make sure you can see this. Make sure my mute is good to go. All right, looks like that's good to go on that. All right, so let me go ahead and hold on, give me a second here. All right, let me go ahead and play the video. And I'm utilizing this on the Fair Uses Doctrine. And today is December the 6th, 2025. Who is Jeffrey Epstein?
A registered sex offender who made a fortune as a hedge fund manager in the 1980s and 90s. Known for his lavish lifestyle and high-profile connections, Jeffrey Epstein is facing new allegations that he exploited dozens of young girls for sex.
Victims were given cash payments if they could bring other underage girls to be similarly abused. And that's how he continued to expand the number of new victims that he had.
It's the latest in a decades-old saga that's been held up as an example of how powerful, rich men avoid accountability.
Now, I want you to keep that in mind with this this female, naive, little feminist. Right? Oh my goodness, no accountability. The nerve of that part of it to talk like that. And we know the uncalculable number of women that commit heinous criminalities, right? Have ran brothels, prostitutionists, right? Murdering males, domestic abusing males. And who gets no accountability collective on that? Not numbers of those women, right? Or they get looked at as, well, it must have been a patriarchy that made them do it. You see how that little game goes, right? But just keep that in mind what she said.
So, who is Jeffrey Epstein? The 66-year-old was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. In his early 20s, he taught physics and math at the Dalton School, an elite Manhattan prep school. Connections he made there got him a job at the investment bank firm Bear Stearns. He then went on to open his own finance firm in 1982. And that's where he amassed his fortune. His firm reportedly only accepted clients worth $1 billion or more. Epstein tried to lead a private life, but his work managing the money of the very wealthy got him into some very high-profile social circles. He became friendly with former President Bill Clinton and current President Donald Trump, also Britain's Prince Andrew. Epstein has 6 residences, including an entire private island in the Caribbean and this $56 million mansion. The 7-story house is one of the largest private residences in Manhattan. These recent charges include allegations he sexually abused underage girls from 2002 to 2005 inside his Manhattan and Palm Beach homes. When he faced similar allegations a decade ago, federal prosecutors in Florida struck a secret plea deal with Epstein. He avoided a possible life sentence in prison and spent 13 months in Palm Beach jail, where he was allowed to leave for work 6 days a week. That 2008 plea deal was negotiated in part by Trump's current labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, who was then the top federal prosecutor in Miami. Now, prosecutors and investigators are seeking to hold Epstein without bail and have appealed for other victims to come forward.
Your bravery might just empower others to speak out about crimes committed against them. It's important to remember there never was, nor will there be, an excuse for this kind of behavior.
So he didn't come from no broke background, right? He wasn't no Appalachian, Anglo type male. He wasn't no extremely low socioeconomic Anglo male. He was well-to-do background, right? Very well-to-do background. But at the same time, again, you have personnel that hear the word Epstein in this situation and they'll do this. Oh, excuse me. Oh, hold on. Give me a second. That's not working out. Let me try this again. Whoop. Well, the facial expression. So give me a second. Let me redo this again. Let me sit there and show you what there's some people that will do when they start hearing that Epstein word. And this is what some people do as well.
Oh, brings it here into the barrel. Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
Right? Now, if it's a Black American male and he's doing some of doing that, even though 9,000% of Black males do not commit criminality, well, you know what? This Epstein stuff, well, we don't look at it as race then. You see how that goes. Notice how the Jeffrey Epstein situation and the Mike Jeffries, two demon rich, these Anglo males, sexual perverted demons, it wasn't about race then, was it? You see how that goes. They did everything else to not talk about the race, no race aspect of this. Now, again, if it's a Black male doing some things, then it's about race. The hypocrisy, right? Now, let me share my screen again. So let me go here. What's the one I want to show next here? Yeah, give me a second here. Let me see which one. This right here. Now, keep that in mind. Remember what that little feminist type of female said earlier? Oh my goodness, these rich type of males and no accountability. The hypocrisy of that is beyond unlaughable, right? Now, let's make sure you can see this. All right. Hello. All right. Now, who was Jeffrey Epstein? The disgraced financier with powerful, this disgraced Anglo rich financier with powerful associates, right? Now, again, I'm not going to read all this, but there's some points I want to go over. Now, when was this date of this right here? Well, I said 2 days. That's not the point of that because that's been a while. Talks about hero. He's not. He said he's not a sexual predator. He said he is not an offender. Jeffrey Epstein told the New York Post in 2011. It's the difference between a murderer and a person who steals a bagel. See, that's that old white illogical, right? Right? That's white explaining, as some people might say, right? The one it applies to. Epstein supposed to, have, last breath, right? In a New York prison cell on August 10th, 2019, as he awaited, without the chance of bail, his trial on sex trafficking charges. It came more than a decade after his conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor, for which he was registered as a sex offender and still was allowed to keep doing his stuff, right? Being all that money he's making. This time he was accused of running a vast network of underage girls, which has been primarily Anglos in general, probably with some other mixed in with it. I'm sure it was probably extremely rare, if any, Black girls for sex. He pleaded not guilty. In November 2025, both chambers of U.S. Congress overwhelmingly approved the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Soon after, President Donald Trump signed the bill that ordered the Justice Department to release all its files from the criminal investigation that took place into Epstein. Now, I'm just going to fast forward this. Oh, well, this right quick. Born and raised in New York, Epstein taught math, and physics in the city at the private such and such school in the mid-1970s. He had studied physics and math himself at a university, although he never graduated. Oh, now, a father of one of his students is said to have been so impressed that he put Epstein in touch with a senior partner at this Wall Street investment bank, such and such. He was partnered within 4 years. By 1982, he had created his own firm, Epstein and Company. The company managed assets of clients worth more than $1 billion, right? And was an instant success. Epstein soon began spending his fortune, including on a mansion in Florida, a ranch in New Mexico, and a reputedly the largest private home in New York, and socializing with celebrities, artists, and politicians, right? All those kind of things. Now, but what I want to also get to, interesting picture, how they keep trying to show the Trumpism and the gigantic, probably uncalculable number of so many other people, right? But what I want to get to is Oh, well, so said Prince Andrew, too, has been criticized for associates with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we're going to see if they're going to sit there and show the many types of women, right? I'm talking about not as victims, right? But sit there around him, right? They saw the money and they want to be around him and be around in those type of socialite facilities on the island, his private island, at his mansion. How many numbers of women well-to-do positions were all over him as well? Oh, let's see if they're going to sit there and show them. Most likely not. But what I want to really get to was his former girlfriend right here. Let me make sure you can see this. The Maxwell trial. After Epstein's wink, wink, unalivement, well, supposed to be, he in the prison, and some people like, yeah, right. That he unalived his supposedly self, right? Okay. So they talk about after Epstein's such and such died. His former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, came into the spotlight. She was arrested in July 2020 at her secluded mansion. Right? In the U.S. state of New Hampshire on suspicion of having assisted Epstein's abuseness of minors by helping to recruit and groom victims known to be underage. But just believe women, right? That those women are just overall just angels, not capable of murder, of assault, of robbing, right? Of white collar crimes, of robbery, of arson, right? Embezzlement, right? And this is why feminism supremacy, which I've been using that word for quite a while, sit back and laugh at the naiveness of people who really sit there and don't understand how conniving and mischievous that numbers of women truly can be, and ones who are that way, right? There's some numbers of males this is naive to this going on, and how many numbers of males have been unfortunately on the opposite end of the receiving end of mischievousness and connivingness of criminality by numbers of women in relationships with them, unfortunately. And they had to learn the hard way, unfortunately, and they were shocked. Talked about here in December 2021, a jury in New York City found her guilty on 5 out of 6 counts, including the most serious charge, that of sex trafficking of a minor. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison, meaning the 60-year-old could spend the rest of her life behind bars. But you have people doing just like this.
Oh, brings it here into the barrel. Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
This is why, again, supremacy is brilliant. Supremacy is brilliant because they are the masters of manipulation and tactics, right? They make sure definitely not to sit there and they definitely make sure to minimize any type of unconstructive, super criminality type women. They make sure to sit there and minimize that. And a few here and there a little bit, they will allow to, it looks like that they were brought to justice, but the gigantic enormousness of how many other women are truly not brought up to justice. And this situation with her, she was put into a super minimumness of a prison. Some people are like, that is not a prison, right? If I have time, make sure a video specifically about her on this. But let me, you know what? Give me a second here. Watch this.
There is a group of us. Over the centuries, the members change, but not the purpose.
Yes.
There is a group of us. Over the centuries, the members change, but not the purpose.
Yes. Every generation basically has quite a number of personnel of very higher super echelons of personnel within certain sections of Anglo-ness, of a higher caste system, and some sprinkling of some other cultures mixed in. But the giganticness of like 90-something plus percent is going to be certain types of Anglo rich to do Anglo males and some type of Anglo women in those truly high echelons of control. Well, again, some other wink mixed in some other cultures and backgrounds, right? And extremely awareness of blacks, especially Black Americans. You don't get up to that level without truly selling your soul. You do not get up to that level whatsoever. But let's go ahead and share my screen again. I think there's one other one I might have wanted to show. Well, yes, this is real fast. Now, remember what that little feminist woman was saying? Oh, my goodness, those rich males, no accountability. And I said that this showed you Ghislaine, whatever it is, Maxwell, his former girlfriend, right? And her abominableness in participation, right? And what she was doing and helping and grooming the underage and probably a little bit over underage type of women for Epstein. And did she participate in some of that as well? Just saying, if she participated in some of that. The girls were just so young, this article. The horrors of Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Ever since billionaire Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on July the 6th, 2019, on charges of sex trafficking, the media have been scrambling to make sense of what happened on Little St. James Island in the Caribbean, his 70-acre private island in the Caribbean. But on nearby St. Thomas, locals say Epstein continued to bring underage girls to the island as recently as this year, a decade after he was forced to register as a convicted sex offender, and that authorities did nothing to stop him. Right? I just want to, you want to give me a second here. I want to read some more. Yeah, it's a little bit more. 2 employees who worked at the local airstrip on St. Thomas tell this particular place that they witnessed Epstein board his private plane on multiple occasions in the company of girls. Again, keep these in mind. Girls, maybe some women thrown in, right? We're going to pretend that you don't think at all, no boys. I'm not talking about 1 or 2. No other boys or males probably were victims by Epstein and whatever other type of certain males in those realms, right? Okay, I guess. Use logic now. Who appeared to be under the age of consent. According to the employees, the girls arrived with Epstein aboard one of the 2 Gulfstream jets between January 2018 and June 2019. Previously published flight records show the jets were airborne at least one out of every 3 days. They dropped all over the world, sometimes for only a few hours at a time. Paris, London, Slovakia, Mexico, Morocco, and then they left St. Thomas. The employees say they returned to airports. Near Epstein's homes in Palm Beach and New York City. On multiple occasions, I saw Epstein exit his helicopter stand on the tarmac in full view of my tower and board his private jet with children, female children, says a former air traffic controller at the airstrip who asked to remain anonymous. One incident in particular really stands out in my mind because the girls were just so young, right? What are they going to do to protect girls? What are they going to protect girls that couldn't have been over 16? Epstein looked very angry and hurled his jacket at one of them. They were also carrying shopping bags from stores not on the island. I remember thinking, where in the world have they been shopping? Now, one of various types of hypocrisy with this situation is, where were the parents of these predominantly based Anglo type girls at? See, we don't pretend that we don't want to see that part, right? We're going to pretend. Notice how barely you did not hear, or people did not hear anything about those parents being accountable for allowing these young girls to go to Epstein's Island or go to that Supermax mansion. You see how that goes, right? Because then it's not about race, then it's about individual, then, isn't it? But again, if it's something dealing with Black Americans, especially Black American males, oh my goodness, then it's boxed into a group of Black Americans. You see how that nonsense goes? God, these games that keep being played upon millions of American Blacks and millions and millions and millions of people in society in the U.S. with very few exceptions. Now, with that being said, now, this is what I want to also get into. You know what? I hope you saw that. You know, I'm hoping I did share my screen on that. If I didn't, I'm sorry about that. I just read what I read. But if you saw it, then that's great. Then if you didn't, I'm sorry about that. No, because I'm just getting into this hypocrisy. So either way, now what I want to get into, the opposite part, is with Mike Jeffries, who was the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch. Remember, I said the gigantic other hypocrisy of this situation on this, right? So let me go ahead and share my screen. And what should I show on this one? Let's just show the video. This short clip. Make sure you can see this. Make sure this is just share a screen. All right. Let me take this off first. Oh, sorry. All right. So let me make sure it's good. Maximize the screen. And let me play this clip. And I'm utilizing this under fair usage doctrine as well.
Now to the arrest tonight of the former CEO of popular retailer Abercrombie & Fitch.
Michael Jeffries is expected to face a judge in a Long Island courtroom this week after he was arrested in Florida today on federal sex trafficking charges. Allie Bauman is here now with the details. Allie.
Well, Maurice and Christine, prosecutors claim the former CEO and other defendants sold aspiring models the dream of success at the price of their sexual compliance. They allegedly made young men sign NDAs and injected...
What? Not girls, right? Listen to this again.
They allegedly made young men sign NDAs and injected them with drugs. The FBI calls this case another example of the wealthy using their power to control the vulnerable. Former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries returns to his Palm Beach, Florida home Tuesday, released from federal custody on $10 million bond. Jeffries, his longtime partner Matthew Smith, and a third man, James Jacobson.
Now, I want just keep that amount about the $10 million. He was released on bail of $10 million. Now, Jeffrey Epstein, right? He kind of got away for half a second. Now, they eventually did lock him up, right? When they started hearing even more accusations about girls. But at the same time, again, no criminality against the parent or parents who allowed these numbers of girls or numbers of women to, I'm talking about the ones that had really, they was too young to, the point I'm getting at is that these young girls that were allowed to go to Epstein Island, right, to go to the mansion of Epstein, no criminality cases against those Anglo parents left and right, and some other sprinkling of some other cultures. You see how that goes, don't you? So how many of them, unfortunately, let's be realistic, how many of them was playing a long game? And maybe they was also hoping, yes, I know it's monstrosityness of demonicism, but this is how certain ones within certain parts of Panama's culture, some of them do this. You'd be like, how is that human? Doesn't matter. Some of them act inhuman. The ones applies to. And many of them, depending on who you talk to in situations, they be trying to plot and plan to see how can they get whatever resources. So here this guy was a billionaire. They knowing that they were sitting there allowing, what you think none of them at all knew beforehand that what kind of person he was? Nobody knew anything, but they still allowed the girls to go to the private island, Epstein Island, or go to his mansion. No, you talking about none of these parents had any kind of damn logic. They say, wait a minute now, we kind of heard some stories about, you know, there might be some sexual situations going on with these young girls. Nope. They may even saw some resources in the future. And they lined up trying to see how can they get some resources. Oh, I know, right? That sounds like some demonicism. But we're talking about logical analysis, right? Well, how many of them probably did? Now you see but at the same time, make this point with Mike Jeffries. Now his heinousness, what he did to young males himself, right? Most of it's going to be Anglo males, by the way. And at the same time, 10 million let on a bail, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit too, if I remember. And he was not put in prison. Some kind of other health situations came up, and then it's like, oh, well, he's unfit now. You see how that goes. Epstein locked up for dealing with some kind of young girls. What's Mike Jeffries dealing with young males? He don't get locked up. Sexual perverted Mike Jeffries messing with young males, grooming them, right? Anglo males, he don't get locked up. Just saying.
Were arrested Tuesday on sex trafficking and interstate prostitution charges. Prosecutors allege the men routinely trafficked aspiring male models between 2008 and 2015, while Jeffries was running one of the most popular clothing.
Hold on, let's just say that. Let's look at this again.
Models between 2000 and interstate prostitution charges. Prosecutors allege the men routinely trafficked aspiring male models between 2008 and 2015, while Jeffries was running one of the most popular clothing brands of its time.
The defendants allegedly preyed on the hopes and dreams of their victims by exploiting, abusing, and silencing them to fulfill their own desires.
This 16-count indictment alleges the three defendants recruited and transported dozens of young men to sex parties at Jeffries' home in the Hamptons and hotels around the world, where they provided alcohol, muscle relaxants known as poppers, and Viagra. And when they did not consent, allegedly subjected the young men to invasive and violent sexual contact.
They caused the men to believe that attending these sex events could yield modeling opportunities with Abercrombie.
I didn't feel free. I didn't feel like I could say no or that I could just walk away. It felt like I was trapped.
Barrett Paul says he was flown to Jeffries' home in New York after auditioning to be a model for Jacobson.
I thought that I was being given Abercrombie clothes to go into an Abercrombie interview, and it was not the interview I expected. And it was the darkest experience of my life.
No, not the darkest. You mean the widest experience. See, that's that little tactic, right? People they don't like to have an accountability relating to those word terminology, right? Have you noticed this? Somebody be going through certain situations. Oh, am I going to have a dark time? Why going to be a dark time? Why can't it be? It was a white time. Huh? You see how that goes, right? Oh, some people have some dark thoughts. Why can't it be to have some white thoughts? And they know it's millions of American blacks that don't even see through these terminology tactics.
There are so many similarities between Epstein, Combs, and now this Abercrombie case.
Well, first of all, see, they put Combs in there to my old Diddy, right? And isn't it interesting how Casey, that was his significant other person, how it was found out that she wasn't no angel herself, and how she was participating allegedly in sitting there in those hookups with different people. So she definitely was not some angelic person herself, right? And some people relate those. She may have also a volatile mentality herself, right? And that she actually was with it was said that she might have actually been with a decent particular black man before, and she left him to go with Diddy, right? Oh, they don't want to talk about those kind of things, right? But the thing about it is there is not similarities. There are, again, opposites on this, right? Epstein was, and I kind of got what she's trying to maybe say, but she's not maybe possibly putting it in a different context, right? Because Epstein dealing with the young girls, mansions, the Caribbean island, no accountability from the parents, basically, right? He goes to jail and under mysterious circumstances, unalives himself, right? Mike Jeffries, Abercrombie Fitch CEO, right? By the way, part of the section of alternative lifestyle category. Oh, they get quiet on that part. Don't want supplies to, right? So his significant other was what? Anglo male, right? So they were negating a relationship, right? Participating in that perversionist with those young Anglo males, right? And with that third person, right? But he doesn't go to jail. He gets let out on the $10 million bail. So it's definitely not the same, right? And the thing about it comes, that's definitely not the darn same at all, right? Now, he got ahead of himself. That's what happened with, Diddy. He got a little ahead of himself and stuff like that, right? Like Bill Cosby, right? He got ahead of himself, unfortunately, right? And they reminded him, Negro, no, you can't buy no TV station, Negro, right? And then out the woodwork, you got all these different women, right? He did this decades ago. He did that to them decades ago, right? You said, where was all that conversation before? 20 years ago, right? Well, they was afraid. Go to HEL, go to Haiti. In this system, please. The mere fact of accusing males left and right is the end thing, right? And remember the Me Too movement? Please. So the Me Too movement would have canceled them real fast. So apparently they sat back and they've gone about their business. And when they heard something about a possibility of make some money off this, they start lining up. And then how many had no proof? Had no proof. They like, well, Bill Cosby did this, he did that to us. No proof. How many had no proof? Right? You said it goes, right?
Former chief of the Brooklyn DA's sex trafficking unit, Lauren Hirsch, is now the director of World Without Exploitation.
For far too long, powerful people have been operating with complete impunity.
Let me start right there. Now, again, remember I said there, anyway, you see what the other woman regurgitated right in that first video. Oh my goodness, these rich males and stuff like that. But I sit there and showed you what, again, in one of those articles, how Ghislaine, whatever her name is, Maxwell, that she also came from a well-to-do socialite background herself, a well-to-do family, and her heinous demonicism participation in the participatoriness of grooming those girls for Epstein, huh? Right? And she got sentenced, was it 20-something years, 25 years? It's amazing how they make sure to not talk about the female conniving mischievousness in the situation, right? And it's not about race then, isn't it? Now, if this was a black woman, right? Just give an example. Unfortunately, there's many Sisterhood Chaos members that are pretty much full of vitriol toward black males because they got their sinister thought pattern from numbers of Anglo feminists, the one it applies to. So that shows you the weakness of Sisterhood Chaos and the silliness of calling yourself a black feminist. Because how can you be a black feminist? That means where they get black feminism from? Because 100 years ago, there was no black feminists because black women better had stayed together collectively with black males, because what was going on then 100 years ago, 1825, because it's 2025, 1925, formal segregation, lynchings all over the place, unfortunately from bad seeds, corruption going on various political figures. Black Americans couldn't go to any college you want to go to, even though these still was just as smart and other things smarter than the predominant culture ones. And they still will let them go to colleges overall. Numbers of black Americans, their kids can go to any kind of school they want to go to and get a decent education, right? You see how that goes, right? So all that stuff to say is that there is the minimization regardless when numbers of women commit atrocious criminality. They are minimized, right? Like in this situation with Epstein. Ghislaine, whatever her name was, Maxwell, who was his girlfriend, her demonic participation in helping the grooming those young girls for Epstein, and maybe she participated herself of a little bit of participation with those young girls. Maybe not. But the point is, she was sit there and sentenced to prison for 20-something years. And you barely hear any kind of feminist talk about that. You don't barely hear any type of women's organizations talk about that. You barely hear any type of many types of women political figures saying, "Oh my goodness, well, we need to have accountability for women that commit these kind of crimes too." Nope, it wasn't about race then, right? It wasn't about gender then, was it? It was just about individual. You see how that goes, right? So the thing about it is, let me get this off the screen. And I think I'll have too many other different things I want to show, but I'm just showing you the hypocrisy of these things going on with the situation. Did I show that one? Oh, yeah, So I showed that initial video about, let me make sure you can see this. I showed you an initial video about Mike sexual predatory Jeffries. Now, let me just read this article, a piece of the article. Former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries arrested on sex trafficking charges. Jeffries and two other associates, Anglo males, were arrested on sex trafficking and interstate prostitution charges, New York particular prosecutors announced, right? But it's not about race then, isn't it? It's about individual. See how that goes. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, has been arrested on sex trafficking and interstate prostitution. When was this? This article is there article date? No article date on this one. I think it's on here, right here. October 22nd, 2024. All right. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, has been arrested on sex trafficking and interstate prostitution charges. Prosecutors announced that Tuesday at that particular month, part of it. Jeffries was arrested in West Palm Beach, Florida. Two associates, Anglo associates, Matthew Smith of West Palm Beach and James Jacobson of Wisconsin, were also arrested in connection with sex trafficking charges of males. Jeffrey and Smith made their initial court appearance at West Palm Beach on that Tuesday afternoon. Jeffries, who was the controversial CEO of the popular clothing brand from 1992 to 2014, was released on $10 million bond later in the day. Magistrate such and such ordered that he be confined to home detention with GPS monitoring and that he could not travel without approval and must surrender his passport. While at the same time, again, sexual deviant, predatory, extraordinary level of this with these males, and he gets a $10 million bailout, a $10 million bail, or he paid whoever people have paid $10 million for him to be bailed out. What? Now you best believe, right? Oh, and look what situation with Diddy Kong, right? He got his remandment, right? They's like, oh no, you're gonna be locked up, and they lock his tail up. See how that goes, right? See how the economy of hypocrisy in that as well? And see how, again, Jeffrey Epstein was locked up, right? But whatever he did before, we should have been locked up before some situations, because initially he was also supposed to register as a sexual predator, and he still continued to get a little greedy with his sexual predatoriness toward however younger women and probably some other women, older, not younger women, right? And I still would have to say, under logical analysis, it most likely had to be some kind of boys somewhere in that mix that were victims, right? That's logical analysis on that. But we know Gigantic primarily have been young girls and numbers of women. But the point is, he eventually went to jail in this situation, right? But at the same time, because the people's like, hey, we protect girls, protect women. Oh, no, he got to go to jail. But the protection for males with Mike Jeffries and his sexual deviant predatoriness with the two other Anglo male predators, and Mike Jeffries didn't go to jail. Mostly male lives really don't matter in this society. Certainly numbers of black lives really don't matter in this society in general, right? This system hates the guts out of black males, black American males, right? And making the boogeyman, but they make sure to not talk about white on white crime, which is the epidemic level, by the way. They don't want to talk about that. Smith, in the same courtroom, submitted to detention until the matter is heard in New York State. Jacobson was scheduled to appear in federal court, and what his thing is, something alongside Jeffries for arraignment on that Friday, whatever that particular time. Jeffries, Smith, and Jacobson, all three Anglo males, each face a single count of sex trafficking as well as 15 counts of interstate prostitution tied to 15 alleged male victims, primarily Anglo males. In court Tuesday, Jeffries wearing a blue polo shirt. I'm not going through all that. Smith around. A federal indictment alleges Jeffries, along with Smith, his romantic partner, turns the lifestyle category, Anglo version of, right? Quietness on that part. And Jacobson, who was described as a recruiter, operated an international sex trafficking and prostitution business from 2008 to 2015. It alleges that, it alleged that they organized sex events in England, France, Italy, Morocco, St. Bart's, New York City, and the Hamptons for Jeffries. Smith and others, they employed coercive, fraudulent, and deceptive tactics in connection with the recruitment, hiring, transportation, obtaining, maintaining, solicitation, and payment of the men to engage in commercial sex. But again, right? What's this? Again.
Oh, who brings it here into the barrel? Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning. Oh, who brings it here into the barrel? Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
There is a group of us. Over the centuries, the members change, but not the purpose.
Yes, they're all powerful people. And you know, and you see how this is symbolism, right? You see this angle of women, right? How many numbers of angle women in those high positions, they sit back and play passive aggressive, neurotic, angelic, right? Demon, relaxed, right? Victim, oppressor, right? They play misogynistic tactics, but they practice misogynistic outcomes. You see how this goes, right? And feminists and true feminists, they love the logicalness of certain numbers of males, and it's not small in society. And unfortunately, it's going in different parts of the globe. And they like numbers of men that are naive, the ones who are like this, that do not see what's going on when you have these type of demon-like type of women in these positions, especially true supremacists, right? And they're acting as if they're victims, and they sitting there controlling the other type of feminists, right? Misogyny type people. Toxic masculinity, right? And they sit there laughing among each other because they say, oh, it's so easy to sit there and destroy many types of males' mentality and how they cower down if they're accused of being toxic masculinity-ness. How they cower down if women accuse them of sitting there being misogynist, right? Instead of saying, who the you think you are? And tell those type of women, you're a misogynist, right? You hate males. You're a type of sexist against males, right? You're a toxic feminist. See, they know millions of males do not know how to play the game back to them. Yes, you can ignore certain ones. That's not the point. Because that's the point is that there are still to be more males calling these little tactics out of these little atrocious feminists, right? And they know it's not enough. Call out the hypocrisy, right, of these certain type of women, political figures that's talking about women, right? But they make sure to sit there and minimize male issues, and how many numbers of regards to political figures minimize Black American pain in society. But they help out immigration personnel, right? Help out border break illegal immigrants. Talk about, anyway, the list goes on. That's a whole different topic. So again,
there is a group of us. Over the centuries, the members change, but not the purpose.
That's right. You see that? You don't see no Black American males and there females because there's no such thing like that. They let them get to a certain kind of sort of level, but they never will get to this level. This is a true control, the true supremacists. These are the kind of ones that control both sides of wars, that controls various parts of politicalness, and then sit there and deny it doesn't exist. They call you conspiracy theorists when they are the people who are the conspirators. You see how that goes, right? They'll sit there and tell someone else, oh, they're just making stuff up and they're unpatriotic, when at the same time, those other people are the ones who are the most anti-patrioticness. You see how that goes. These are the massive manipulators, right? They truly are. And the thing about it, they know that unfortunately, there's not enough Black Americans that see through the tactics. They know even more. There's unfortunately quite a number of males and females within various parts of the economics coach who do not see the tactics being going on toward them as well. They just use as like pawns, right, on that situation. And so I'm like this regardless. I'll sit back in observation mode, because the way society is going, it is definitely heading for the destructionary situation. This is why you're having a lot of type of well-to-do people, rich. They're building up their own facilities, right, away from the United States. And I'm telling you, many of them, they are wanting to either while they're alive or possible, or for their descendancy to be able to live good and to be able to hopefully maybe go to the moon and set up some things to take over certain sections within the moon. That's part of it. Because eventually, it may not be within 25 years or 30 years, but eventually, people, unless something dramatically changes, right, they're going to get to the moon and they're going to set up facilities there. And it might be even some things going on certain sections of the moon right now that most people don't even know about. But they eventually will truly get commercialized into the moon. This is why you have various types of ships, and you want to call it pseudo spaceships per se, experimental, certain direct ones, whatever you want to call it, that's making these many trips into space. They ain't just doing it for the heck of it, right? They are trying to get to that moon and set up some shop on that. So I think one of the last things I want to show, well, one other quick thing. Remember I was saying before about the particular Ghislaine, hold on, give me a second. Right here, Ghislaine Maxwell, might be pronouncing correctly. So what? In this situation, because she's still a demon. Her participation with, what's his name? With Jeffrey Epstein. She was the girlfriend of Epstein, right? And she was, make sure you can see this. Hold on. She was the girlfriend, former girlfriend of Epstein. And she was participatory in the grooming of these girls as well, and Harvard women, right? For Epstein and possibly for herself, right? Again, she came from a socialite background, well-to-do family, etc., right? But again, many type feminists, many type women's organization, and unfortunately, some gullible type males, etc. They won't say nothing about this about the ones who know, right? Or they'll try to deflect it from the situation with these type of demon type women, right? Because she was right there with Epstein. She was right there with him, but she's not held accountable, right? In the outcome relating to, oh my goodness, Well, women need to be held accountable hardcore too. Nope. It's always make some kind of excuses for where it might have been. Well, probably this situation, well, she probably used as a scapegoat. There was an article that was talking about, maybe it was the article I was showing earlier, but I didn't read the whole thing. But they was trying to make it seem like that she was the victim. She was a scapegoat. Please. So let's continue. This is where she's been put in prison. Let's see what she thinks about her prison life.
Ghislaine Maxwell, in her own words, describing life in her new prison home. I feel like I have dropped through Alice in Wonderland's looking glass, she writes, a federal prison Camp Bryan, according to emails she sent to friends and family, reviewed by NBC News. I am much, much happier here, she writes. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting minors to be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, we're just going to pretend we didn't hear that part, right?
Emails she sent to friends and family, reviewed by NBC News. I am much, much happier here, she writes. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting minors to be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. The emails obtained by the House Judiciary Committee investigating allegations of special treatment, written by Maxwell after an abrupt and unusual transfer from a low-security facility in Florida to this all-women's camp in Texas, typically reserved for white-collar criminals.
What? Did you hear what she said? White-collar criminals. Translation primarily for Anglo-type women. Anglo women in this situation, right? Primariness, right? Now, you think they're going to send a lot of Black American women there? Overall, I'm saying, right? This is continued.
All women's camp in Texas, typically reserved for white-collar criminals. The move came amid backlash over the DOJ and FBI announcement in July that a review found no incriminating client list. Soon after, Maxwell met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Did you know of the existence of any such list?
There is no list.
Oh, there is no list. That means what? No correspondence, no nothing. But at the same time, what is it now? Today is December 6, 2025. And what was it last year? They somebody trying to release the Epstein files. That means it has to be a list of something somewhere. God, I'm telling you, people can truly. There are people who really can just look at you and outright blatantly, gigantically, little white lie in people's faces. Literally.
Days later, she was transferred and writing emails gushing over her improved conditions. The food is legions better. The place is clean, the staff responsive and polite, she wrote. Saying in another, you are not allowed to steal, beat people up, and attack them with homemade weapons. The Justice Department, which oversees federal prisons, declined to comment. Maxwell's attorney saying in a statement, it's time to get over the fact that she's in a safer facility. We should want that for everyone. The family.
What in kind of hell's nonsense is that? Hell's tongue is that nonsense? What about numbers of the Black American males who are in prison? How many of them in nice, luxurious facilities? Huh? Are there not some that have done some white-collar crime? Some, right? They're still not going to Lilliput type of facilities for males like this. This is for women, for males like that, insignificantalities. No, the system wants to have Black males in facilities where there's a constant, high, gigantic stress. Where when numbers of certain type of Black males who do certain type of not so good things, which is still going to be small in comparison, they want the recidivism rate to be up for Black males, even though crime is down, even though Black American males situations with that is going down. They don't want to talk about that part because prisoners is private industries, stock market. How many own stock markets? So there is a bionisticness to have as many bodies in prisoners as they can. How is that humanness? How is that humanity? Right? Are there some ones that definitely need to be put in facilities? Of course. Are there ones that should not be there? Of course, too. But the system does not want to differentiate between that. It must make money. right? That's not very humanity-wise, right? Because again, oh my goodness, black on black crime, black on black crime, black on black crime, even though again, the majority of black males, 900,000% don't commit criminality like that. You see how that goes, right? Or they'll play the per rate. Man, I can't have respect for people that keep trying to play per rate game like that if they continue to have that kind of silly mantra. So all the categories, right? You talking about drug offenses, that is gigantically Anglo males, right? Gigantically. But who are the people that they blur out when they sit there and show something about drugs and drug offenses? Black males. And even quicker, it was percentage-wise, they'll try to show, well, black women. You see how that goes, right? But it's predominantly black males who they showcase. Even though the majority of drug offenses, criminality, the rest is Anglo males. And then when they know that you can't fool them on that little sidetrack switcher, they'll say, well, per rate is more, well, that's because it's more Anglo men. Go to hell. There are numbers of males, there are numbers of white and Spanish that are considered white. There are numbers of other type of males that have slid under the generic white banner that are not necessarily white. Irish personnel less than 100 years ago weren't considered white. Numbers of Scottish personnel less than 100 years ago were considered white. Numbers of Polish people, you get the point. You get the whole list, were considered white. You from France, you were considered white. Either you weren't going to have that many French people in 1925, by the way. You got certain type, I don't want to go now. You get the point, right? So you got some people that kind of slide under the banner of white. You see how that goes. But just like, like black Americans are their own uniqueness, but it's a whole different topic. I don't want to get sidetracked with this, but you know how there's some other people that have skin to black, right? I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters because those are going to be small within the America that's allowed to come from immigrating in different other places. Certain parts of Africa, certain parts of different Caribbean islands, they're allowed to come over. Those are not collective. They're going to be someone that is open and they want to talk to black Americans and learn. No, they don't want to do all that. They allow the coons and sellouts overall to come to America. And they have the nerve to try to talk down upon black Americans, but they're the ones who fled. The nerve of that, because that's all kind of jealousy in that particular part. Right? To the one that applies to. But I make this point. The per rate game is silly and infantile. Because the way that this system tries to make it seem like that, no matter what the categories are of criminality, even though you got criminality categories where there is not even a closeness of some black males that have done some wrong in that category in comparison to numbers of Anglo males. Gigantically different. What Anglo males gigantically having criminalities in that category arrested gigantically more than black males. And you got some people that are either that naive or playing that dang silly and try to sit there and try to use a per rate game. Well, it's actually, per rate, it's more black men. Go to hell. But people like that ignorance. But the ones that can truly go to hell is the ones who know how it sounds, what they're trying to do. Right? But that's a whole different topic in itself.
Of abuse survivor Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who later died by suicide, saying, "We strongly reject the notion that a convicted child sex trafficker should reside in a residential neighborhood."
And to think about it, you see right here. So this tells you, this is why I have to kind of relate this over. There is a caste system within Americanism under Anglo womanism. There is a Anglo woman caste system or a white woman caste system in America. The super echelons of socialite type of Anglo women, they don't give a about some middle class Anglo women. You got numbers of Anglo type women, Anglo women that dang sure don't care about low economic type women. Now they will utilize each other for, say, for instance, propaganda type topics. Hey, we're gonna get together and talk about sexism. We're gonna say men sexist, toxic masculinity, misogyny. Now we'll get together and do that part, and we'll just kind of propagandize those words, right? But when they separate them, they go about their business. When it's about caste system, they go about their own business. They on that. You see how that goes. So Ghislaine Maxwell, You think she cared about this woman hero? No. Caste system. And this is white on white criminality again. So the last thing I want to show is this. And I've already mentioned that before already. But let's just, what happened to Mike Jeffries? Now watch this. Get this. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of, make sure you can see this. All right. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, is not currently in jail, but is in custody in a hospital for treatment. He was deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial on federal sex trafficking and prostitution charges in May of 2025 due to diagnosis of dementia and late onset Alzheimer's diseases. I truly find that highly offensive. Beyond. There are some truly people that suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's, and the families who know they are. I'm talking about them as the good families, not some of the hateful type ones within certain parts of Vietnamese culture and some other people. And they unfortunately may have some relative that a relative have dementia, Alzheimer's, right? I'm talking about some of the good type of people, but unfortunately they have to deal with a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, a grandparent. You get the point. A friend, etc., that are suffering with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? That is a terribleness of a disease, terrible. But the thing about it is, that's just what you talking about a couple of years ago. They weren't talking about how, oh my goodness, he's suffering truly, because you can have a slight early stages of dementia and still can be functional. Right? It didn't say anything about he had early stages a couple of years ago. Now all of a sudden, because his devious work, he got caught being a sexual deviant after all these years with his partner, his alternate lifestyle category partner, and the other demon-like, whoever the other third person was that participated in the sexual deviantness against these young males. These predominantly Anglo males. Still white on white criminality, by the way. And they found to sit there to find out how to let him go with $10 million of bail. And now to sit there and say, well, you know what? He can't stand trial because he's mentally incompetent. Right? So I also want to sit there and show you that part on that. But again,
Brings it here into the barrel. Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
Yeah. How many people are like that, right? How many people are like that? And it's not about race when there's certain sections of Angloism that's participating in this. Have you noticed this? Look at how the mass shoutingness that happens almost like a weekly basis somewhere, right? Notice how, 9,000% of the mass shouting type personnel are Anglo males, and you throw in a few females in there here and there, right? But 9,000% of the Anglo mass shouting type of assailants are Anglo males. And are people sitting there putting them in a whole group of Anglo maleness? No, it's individual Anglo males, right? Now, black male, he does something, even though majority of black males do not commit criminality like that, right? It's black males are put into a group. I'm telling you, the hypocrisy is crazy. Like the situation, I definitely had to show this. Give me a second. Maybe. Give me a second here. Give me a second. Picture. I thought I had the picture. Oh, yeah, I do. Give me a second here. This is the last picture here. On the right side, for people who remember, and you can't assume because there are some people who don't even know who this personnel is. On the right side, this is the demon, Daniel Penny. The guy he has in chokehold is Jordan Neely, a black man up in New York. and he was on the subway or something like that, or to that point, and he has some mental situations going on with him. How many other mental situations that happen to Anglo males and females throughout this country, right? And they're not, anyway. So he was going toward Jordan Neely, was going toward, I guess, maybe an Anglo woman, and the demon, Daniel Penny, on the right side, he did his little white saviorness, and he, well, along with two other demon cretins, which is a whole different topic, because I did a topic show specifically on this, because the two other cretins, one at least was a white Hispanic, and that wasn't brought up 0.2% of the time. It's almost like they fell off the planet. They sit there. You see that two other cretins were right next to this little other cretin, main cretin of Daniel Penny, and they said there was helping to hold the hand of Jordan Neely, the black man, down, who's having some mental situations, and it's almost like they fell off the planet. You said that goes right, and at least one of them for sure was a white Hispanic. Both of them, the other creatures could have been two Hispanics. One could have been white Hispanic. Other could have been a non-black people of color, right? But one was a white Hispanic. And Daniel Demonic Penny, he was at, they were celebrating him for his defense fund. It was raised a couple of $1 million for his defense. And then he was a Marine veteran. What the hell I got to damn do anything? As if there's no veterans out there that have came from a Klan background. That means nothing, right? And it's almost like people it's like they levitated upon millions of Black American faces when this happened as well, right? Because it's almost like, so Daniel Demonic Penny choked out Jordan Neely. He has some mental situations. And again, how many Anglo males and women have mental health situations? I mean, true mental health situations themselves. How many Anglo males walking around, getting in people's faces, right? In different places. Huh? They don't get choked out. And certainly better not be a Black American male that jumps up and put them in the chokehold. Oh, he would have to go to prison. So if Jordan Neely was a black male, and Daniel Penny, Jordan Neely, Daniel Penny was a black male, and Jordan Neely was a white male, and a black Daniel Penny choked out a black Jordan Neely, I'm sorry, you get the point I'm getting at. If Jordan Neely was a white male, and Daniel Penny was a black male, and he choked out a white Jordan Neely, oh man, that would have been mass chaos. Oh my goodness, Black people, Black American males, black males, violent. And you think they would sit there and be parading him around as a hero? This society has got some whacked up demonic stuff going on in certain sections of this society. And they're getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Right? See, it's not about race when certain numbers of Anglo males are predominant, when white males do heinous things. In some other cultures too, it's not about race then or ethnicity. It's about individual. But when you hear something about Black American males, the small amount overall, you talk about per rate overall, that don't commit criminality. Well, when some do that, then it's, oh my goodness, Black American people, black and black crime, black and black crime. But this situation with Jeffries, with Mike Jeffries, the CEO, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and the demon, Jeffrey Epstein, and their victims were predominantly white. Where's all the white and white crime, criminality conversation at? He said it goes. Again, in closing, just like the predominant base 9,000% of mass shootings, assailants are Anglo males. And that don't make people sitting there and look at Anglo males collectively as criminals. Nope, because they understand it's put individual. This system is getting wicked and wickeder. And the system likes it that way. I thank you for tuning in. To the Real CP Show.